C.S. Lewis is one of my favorite theologians.
Yep.
I am a huge fan of the Puritan movement and of a lot of the theology that comes out of the Church of England. I think is really beautiful. Some of it is obviously different because it's a different tradition, but I think that there's a lot that we can learn from different traditions, and C.S. Lewis is a fantastic place to start. If you're not familiar with who Lewis is, he grew up an atheist, extremely intelligent man, and thought that the gospel and thought that Christianity was just a big joke. And over time, he actually decided, and I can't remember if it was college or somewhere, he decided that he was going to set out to disprove it. And over time, the Spirit led him to realize that it was far more realistic to engage in Christianity than it is to deny it. He wrote his book Mere Christianity on that, and this whole corpus of books and theology came out of that conversion experience of his. And the quote that we're going to work with comes out of that life story of his. The letter is entitled Letters to Malcolm. And Malcolm is a pseudonym. It's actually to nobody, but it's a rhetorical device of his to communicate the theology that was going on in his heart and mind. But here's a quote. We learn very early in our Christian life that Scripture commands us to feel grateful to God. Psalm 106 says this, Colossians 3:15 says this. We are commanded to feel grateful to God and to offer Him thanksgiving. Very often we learn this before we really understand how Thanksgiving works. And this, and interestingly, is not just within the Christian tradition. People who don't grow up in the Christian tradition discover this. So we try to work up a sense of thankfulness and worship over abstract things. For Christians, God's beauty, or goodness, or blessings, or love. But we often wonder at the wispy, ephemeral quality of our gratitude. The problem is we can't emotionally connect with an abstraction that isn't sufficiently grounded in specifics. As Lewis said, and here's his quote, "We shall not be able to adore God on the highest occasions if we have learned no habit of doing so on the lowest. At best, our faith and reason will tell us that He is adorable, but we shall have not found Him so. We shall not have tasted and seen. Any patch of sunlight in a wood will show you something about the sun which you could never get from just reading books on astronomy. These pure and spontaneous pleasures are patches of Godlight in the woods of our experience."
Yep. That's good.
And when I read that, what stuck out to me was we shall not be able to adore God on the highest occasions if we haven't learned a habit of doing so on the lowest. Kyle, what do you think Lewis is getting at pragmatically? Like, what does having a habit of adoring God on the lowest occasions look like? What benefit does it offer to us? Tell us what you think.
Yeah. So Lewis is essentially saying, if you only enjoy God when life is good, but when difficulty comes, you run from God. You don't know what it means to experience God. That's essentially what he's getting at. And it reminds me of another Puritan quote. It actually is a prayer that comes from the Valley of Vision. And he starts off that prayer by saying, "Let me learn by paradox that the way up is down, that to be low is to be brought high, that the broken heart is the healed heart, the contrite spirit is the rejoicing spirit, the repenting soul is the victorious soul, that to have nothing is to possess all, that to bear the cross is to wear the crown, that to give is to receive, and that the valley is the place of vision."
And so you can remember all that.
And I think that's so good because what that prayer is getting at is that the Christian life is a life of paradox. That the Son of God gave up his seat at the right hand of the throne of God and took on the form of a servant and in a place of lowly position and gave his life so that all of those who would find their hope in him would have life everlasting. That's a paradox, right? And Lewis is getting at the paradox of the Christian life, that ultimately, if you want to have vision, if you want to see God, know God, taste and see, like the psalmist says, where that happens is not when life is at its best. Because in those moments, often we think we're the reason life is good. At least I think that when life is going good, it's because I'm working hard, it's because I'm doing my best, or it's because I've accomplished all of these things. I've put in the hard work. But we experience God in our lowest when we're helpless, and in those moments, that's where God meets us. That's Psalm 23.
Yeah.
Even though I walk through the shadow of the valley of death, you are with me, right? Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. And when we experience God in the lowest moments, then when we're in the highest moments, what does that lead to? It leads to thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Because we realize we don't deserve this. We didn't earn this. God has given it to us.
Yeah, yeah. And, when we were talking about wonder just a couple minutes ago, when we were talking about that quote, I mentioned the disciplines, the spiritual disciplines, and I think that what Lewis is getting at here, in addition to what you're saying, is this is something that we can train ourselves in.
Yeah.
If we have a practice of recognizing the specifics, the lowest, the reflections of sunlight that reaches the wood and the ground of our experience, it causes us to, and this is taken right from from an extended quote on that, looking up the shaft of sunlight toward the sun.
Yeah.
And we could take a play on words on that and say toward Christ, toward the Son himself, who is the source of all light and life, which should lead us to godly thanksgiving.
Yep.
I don't know. I love Lewis's ability to take scriptural things and make analogies out of them in a really unique way. But I love that.